What's up guys, Tommy here, bringing you another RU battle against someone by the name of GMTarik. If I find out his YouTube channel, I'll put it in the video description once again, but anyways, this is sort of a team made up of some favourites from previous teams I've had. You got the likes of leafeon in there, the infamous Druddigon, and we got Fearow in there too. Ones that were sort of successful in older teams. I'll put them in there together, and I think I threw in a couple of new ones too, so I thought he'd lead off with either his Fearow or his Rhyperior. The Fearow to do some scouting of U-turn and stuff, which is what he goes for. Or Rhyperior to set up some stealth rocks. I thought either way, Pelipper was a pretty safe choice. I decided to go for a knockoff, knowing that he'll probably want to U-turn out, and getting a knockoff on anything is not a bad thing whatsoever. So he goes into his Clefable, and the fact that this thing had the Life Orb, and the fact that he brought it in on my Pelipper suggests to me that he has the Thunderbolt. And so I'm fearing that, so I decided to go straight out to my Druddigon. I didn't want to go to my Camerupt to actually take the Thunderbolt, just because I knew that my Camerupt probably couldn't do much to this thing. I don't have any, power boosting moves whatsoever. I have the Rock Polish and then 3 attacking moves. Nothing would do much to that Clefable, to be honest, but I know he's going to switch out here, so I go for Dragon Tail. Unfortunately, I miss as he goes into his Rhyperior. And in all honesty, I don't really have too much to do to this Rhyperior unless I actually send in my Pelipper. And I don't want to risk him going for a Stone Edge on the switch, so I decided to stay in. Went for an Earthquake just to see how much it would do. I actually gave this thing Earthquake instead of Protect, which we had before, because I kind of realised that the one thing I really wanted on this Druddigon was some kind of powerful attack to hit things hard once I've paralysed them with Glare. So you could have either, Super Power or Dragon Claw or Earthquake, whatever. And I felt so bad for this move here. This is the comedy moment of the game, for my side, not for his side, but he goes for a Sky Attack with the Power Herb, which actually makes it so you don't need to charge up a turn. And he misses, unfortunately, and to rub salt on the wounds, I actually hit my Glare, which actually has the exact same base accuracy, so I felt really bad for that move. I'm not really sure how much it would have changed the game, but regardless, he switches out here. I know he's going to do that, so I go for a Dragon Tail again. This time it does hit, so I get a little bit of damage on the Dust Noir, which is always nice, but in comes the Rhyperior, which I really didn't want. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, Druddigon really can't do much to Rhyperior, I'm going to have to switch out into something else. I go to leafeon thinking he might go for either a Stone Edge or an Earthquake. I think he may have predicted that, although I guess Ice Punch would have been a good move for Druddigon anyways, but he goes for the Ice Punch, which I didn't actually realise Rhyperior could get. But it does pretty nice damage to my leafeon. I sort of thought I could live another one, but I didn't want to risk it. Didn't want to risk setting up a Swords Dance here, knowing that, well, I kind of thought he would switch out. But again, just in case, I didn't want to risk it, so I went straight for a Leaf Blade. Nothing on his team particularly wants to take a Leaf Blade anyway. I guess he could have brought in his Fearow here, but it may not have been able to take 2, and it's paralysed, so go for a Leaf Blade on the Grumpig. I guess that was his best thing to actually bring in at this point. And this is actually a pretty interesting Grumpig set, because he tricks me here at Choice Scarf. That isn't all that bad, to be honest. Leafeon can go either 2 ways. Leafeon can be a great physical wall, or it can be a great physical sweeper, because it's got pretty damn good speed and attack. And although it doesn't have much of a physical move pool, it still gets access to Leaf Blade and X-Scissor. I actually carry Baton Pass and Swords Dance on mine as well. So obviously I can't Swords Dance now, I've got the Choice Scarf, but a Choice Scarf Leafeon really isn't too bad, so I'm pretty happy with that. But he goes for a Thief here, and I guess he did predict my switch into Druddigon here, because obviously had he gone for the Thief on my Leafeon, all that would have happened is he got a Choice Scarf, and a Choice Scarf on a Paralysed Fearow probably isn't going to be doing all that much, so guess my Rocky Helmet, which is pretty good for him, and he goes for Drill Peck. Not going to kill me from this kind of range because Druddigon is an absolute monster. I say that every time, but I decided to go for Dragon Tail, knowing that the Rocky Helmet will kill me off from the recall, but I really didn't mind too much. A Fearow with that much health left is the perfect thing to bring in my Leafeon in, because a Leaf Blade will kill him from that kind of range. And I decided to lock myself into Leaf Blade just because I figured that would do the most damage to anything he brings in. I sort of assumed he would bring in the Dust Noir next, but you'll see in a second, I actually changed my mind and decided to switch out again, because Dust Noir probably could have taken a Leaf Blade. Not entirely sure, but I suspected he may have been able to. And I was fearing the Will-O-Wisp at this point. Which is why I go into my Camerupt. My barter, my currency in the desert. Bring in Camerupt, expecting to go for the Will-O-Wisp, but he actually goes for the Nightshade. Don't know if he predicted that or not, but I think this is actually a pretty sort of unique Dust Noir set in terms of what you normally see online. Actually, I've just noticed Dust Noir seems to be going for the aerial look there with the clamshells. Don't know if you guys know what I mean, but looking at the body, that's just what it looks like, honestly. But he goes for a Nightshade. I sort of thought he might have the Shadow Sneak, since most Dust Noirs tend to, but it doesn't look like he does, because I go for the Flamethrower here, and he doesn't go for the Shadow Sneak, so hey, I got lucky there. But it is a double down since I have the Life Orb, so Camerupt sacrificed himself for the Dust Noir. In my opinion, that's a pretty fair trade, so I'm happy with that. But now I decided to go back into leafeon because it's my choice Scarfer. I guess I do have Fearow as well, but he could have easily bought in the Rhyperior. And I decided to go into leafeon just because I thought it was a safe play. Go for a Leaf Blade, knowing that this Clefable could probably kill me off next turn and probably live a Leaf Blade, but I didn't really mind too much at this point. He does kill me off with a Thunderbolt, which is fair enough. And now at this point, I'm pretty safe to bring in my Fearow. So I was kind of worried at this point in the game because he still has his Rhyperior and his Clefable, obviously, and he has the Stealth Rocks up, so I can't really play around too much just switching around. Obviously, I got the 2 flying types with Fearow and Pelipper, but I did predict his switch here into Rhyperior, so I decided to go for a U-turn. And this gives me a safe switch into my Pelipper, and now I'm pretty confident that a Scald from Pelipper can actually kill this thing because it's 4 times super effective, obviously. And, you know, even though this Pelipper has no special attack investment whatsoever, and Rhyperior has pretty nice defenses, and I assume the solid rock ability, though I'm not really sure, I decided to go for a Scald just to see how much it would do. I don't know if I could have lived a Stone Age from that thing or not, to be honest, but decided to go for it anyway. Get off the Scald, and luckily it does take this guy down. Even if it didn't, I could have hoped for the burn, and, you know, maybe I would have got away with it then, but get off a Scald in this thing. This Pelipper's actually, I didn't want to call it Nigel because that's already been taken, but this Pelipper's sort of a defensive wall, toxic stalling kind of thing. It does work pretty well, although I haven't really used it all that much at the moment. He brings in his Clefable. I assume he's going to go for the safe Thunderbolt. I didn't think he'd mess around with, you know, predictions and stuff since he's in a pretty weak position at the moment. So I decided to go into Grumpig just to take that, who is my dedicated special wall in this team. And I go ahead and go for a Psychic. I felt like he could have lived this Psychic, but I actually get a critical hit, so not really sure if that mattered too much. But I kill him off with a Psychic there. I honestly don't know what other moves that Clefable had. But I'm looking pretty good here with the Grumpig as he brings in his Alakazam. And I sort of wanted to stay in and see what sort of Alakazam this was. Maybe it's Choice, maybe it's Life Orb, but I thought Grumpig could take it either way. But he goes for a Psyshock, and obviously because Psyshock hits the physical defensive side, Grumpig's not going to take that all that well. But even so, I sort of had a suspicion that he was Choice Specs, because that still did a pretty decent amount of damage, given Grumpig's pretty respectable HP stat here with the full HP investment. Plus, it's resisted, obviously. So I had a sneaking suspicion he was Choice Specs. So if he was Choice Specs, I can easily bring in my Fearow to U-turn it and outspeed it to kill it off. And if all else fails, Pelipper should be able to wall this thing reasonably well. Hopefully whittle it down with either a Toxic and Roost or just keep going for the Scald. Either way, that was pretty much my plan at the moment. It did seem pretty safe for me at this point. So I just go ahead and bring in Fearow just to see what he is. Like I said, I thought he was Choice Specs. So I go for a U-turn, and that will finish off the Alakazam. So that was a great game, GMTarik. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.